In April, Kenneth C. Fischer, president of the University Musical Society, announced his retirement from UMS. It'll take effect June 30th of this year, and it will conclude his 30th year of service in that position. Now, I should tell you that a whole series of events has happened since he announced his retirement. For instance, fast forward to last week, and you probably know this, but Gordon Red Berenson said he is retiring after 30 years as Michigan's ice hockey coach. The preceding day, the head coach of the Michigan State University ice hockey team announced he is resigning. Actually, he was urged to resign. Then the dean of the U of M School of Music, Aaron Dorkin, has announced that he is leaving his post. And the ultimate coincidence happened this past weekend. The head basketball coach at San Diego State University, Steve Fischer, formerly of the U of M, he's resigning after 18 years. So this is, you might say this is a coincidence, but I think, Ken, this really cements in my mind the national reputation you have in academia and college athletics as a trendsetter, a true leader. Oh, I forgot to mention, Jimmy Langworthy, who lights our candles at church every Sunday, has quit. Okay, Ken is only the 6th person to serve as UMS president during its 137-year history. You might know some of the names: Henry Simmons Freeze, the Freeze Building; Charles Sink, Gail Rector, who is still among us, just to name a few. Stephen Forrest, the chair of the UMS Board of Directors, said, and I quote, "Ken has been a remarkable leader for UMS. He has brought this organization to global prominence that has changed not only the performing arts scene, but also the quality of life in our city and region. He has followed a highly inclusive philosophy of everybody in, nobody out. That he has an enormous impact on many people who under his leadership have developed a lifelong passion for the arts. He will certainly be missed, but he leaves a legacy that will continue long into the future." Major artists and residencies presented during Fischer's time include being one of only 4 cities in the country to present the Vienna Philharmonic's final tour with Leonard Bernstein back in 1988 that celebrated Bernstein's 70th birthday and Hill Auditorium's 75th. Under Fischer's tenure, this Fischer, not the other one, UMS was named a 2014 National Medal of Arts recipient, the first university presenter to receive this highest award given to artists and art patrons by the United States government. Fischer was a talented French horn player at the U of M, and his roots go back to his days as a student at the prestigious Interlochen Arts Academy. Penny Fischer, his lovely and talented wife, is the first chair flute in the Ann Arbor Symphony Orchestra. Friends, was emeritus then, right? Okay, let's give Ken a warm applause.
Well, thanks everybody. I must say, with all those retirements, I'm heartened to see the guy that looks after my retirement back there, John Goff. Thank you very much for being here, John. And you also have in the room the 2 people that are providing my shelter, Bob Gray and his wife Susan Smith Gray. We had problems with our house during the power outage. And I have, Ken and Alan are 2 of our great arts patrons, as are many of you here. And then Arlene over here, Arlene Barnes, one of our volunteers. We have Kathy Wilder here, who ushers for us. And I bring you all greetings from Letitia Bird. I went to visit Letitia yesterday. She loves this club. Was sorry she couldn't be able to come. So here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to give you a sense of the important moments in our history that you should be aware of, because we're all part of this together in our community. We're the oldest of our kind in the country. Smart people a long time ago said we need to have the arts be given prominence here. Then I'm going to take a look at what's really meant something to me over the last 30 years. Why, what are some of the takeaways that I'd want to have shared? Then I want to give you a sense of the future and meet the person that's going to succeed me. So, first of all, I want you to know who we are. We're the oldest of the university-related presenters in the country, and our mission to inspire individuals and enrich communities by connecting audiences and artists in uncommon and engaging experiences. We have a unique relationship with the University of Michigan. We're independent but deeply integrated. We're like the Alumni Association. You understand that? And then we work in partnership with 80 University of Michigan units and over 200 faculty members. So what is it that we do? We do 60 to 90 performances every year, this year in 9 different venues. We have more than 100 educational and community engagement activities in any one year. And since 1990, we've put money in the hands of choreographers and playwrights and composers, and have been responsible for the creation of 80 new works. And then roughly half of our events include somebody making their UMS debut. We host up to 150,000 people a year. Students at the university constitute about 21% of our audience, and that's quite a bit. And over 250,000 students have attended, and we've discounted those tickets up to $4.5 million. Then we have a significant relationship with economic development in this community. In fact, we've received four grants from the Michigan Economic Development Corporation totaling $635,000. I can tell you no other arts organization in the state comes close to that. But finally, what is it that the artists really love? They love you. And here's what they say about you. You're diverse, knowledgeable, passionate, and appreciative. And they always comment, you're the smallest town on our tour, but you deliver the largest crowd. A lot of that has to do with Hill Auditorium. We'll talk more about that in a minute. And finally, the person that's been with me on this journey for 30 years and 56 total since we met at Interlochen, remember that, Larry Dittmar? Is my wife, Penny Peterson Fischer. She's terrific. That's where we were at Interlochen, and this is us now. So, the name Henry Simmons Fries was first announced. I'm going to put the first of these 12 important factors for you to know is that we happen to be founded by a classicist, an organist, and a guy who on 3 different occasions was president of the University of Michigan. The first concert was in 1879. We were incorporated in 1880, but that wasn't enough. We founded the Ann Arbor School of Music in 1880. What's significant about this is they all still exist, all 4 of them. Smart guy, Fries. And the fact that he was an acting president of the university, I think, gave a lot of gravitas to what it is he wanted to do. Second thing I think that's critical for you to know, in 1894, the May Festival was founded by this guy, Albert Stanley. He'd come from the Leipzig Conservatory. The final concert of that first May Festival was the Verdi Requiem, which we played at every other milestone university. Artists were from the Boston Festival Orchestra and our choral union. And what's the significance here? People came from all over the country for this festival. And they put Ann Arbor on the map as a destination and enjoyed a 102-year history. We'll talk about that history in a moment. A third thing, if we didn't have Hill Auditorium, we wouldn't be anywhere near what we are now. And that's because of a bequest of Arthur Hill. And then he was able to find the right architect for this, and that's Albert Kahn, who's world famous. And Hill opened in 1913 with the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. And the significance is that we now have a hall with that was large enough to have the entire student body of the University of Michigan in it. But look at these artists here. Imagine Segovia, the guitarist, without amplification, being able to be heard by 4,200 people. Here are the other artists. To have that combination of big size and great acoustics made this really unique. And here's the first audience, that photo, in May 14, 1913. Now, Charlie Sink's name was brought up. There's probably nobody that had a greater impact. He was with us from 1904 to 1968. I mean, that guy preceded me just one removed. That's 113 years that three of us have led the organization. I think we like it. But he brought Caruso here in 1919, the most famous singer in the world. He brought here to Ann Arbor. I don't have time for this whole story. It's fascinating. If there's time for the Q&A, I'll tell you about it. So what's the significance here? It's what Charlie said about this. If the great artist is out there, just go get him. Don't apologize for being a small Midwest town. We've got the hall and we've got the audience. Let's bring them here. Okay, and the great artists, they're still coming. Horowitz played here 15 times. I want you to tell your friends wherever they are, Horowitz played 15 times in my hall. I mean, that's amazing, folks. The greatest pianist of the 20th century. Rachmaninoff 6 times. Menuhin 19. Leontine Price. Chicago Symphony Orchestra 205 times in our hall. And then Winton 19 times. He's the artist that's been here the most in recent years. Okay, number 5, the Philadelphia Orchestra used to come here 49 years straight. What that did was build relationships with the people in our community. Golf tournaments, tennis tournaments, dinner parties. There was this bond formed, but in 1984, Riccardo Muti put this to an end. And that was really the beginning of the end of the May Festival. That Philadelphia Orchestra arrangement was so special and could be done so easily. A phone call between my predecessor and Eugene Normandy, they worked out the program in about 20 minutes, okay? Once that ceased, it became much more complicated. The significance, again, all these relationships between a great orchestra and the members of our community, that ceased, and we ended up having to do something different. My first season, now look at this photo. That's Leonard Bernstein. The first events at Hill Auditorium for me were back-to-back concerts of Bernstein and the frigging Vienna Philharmonic. I mean, the greatest orchestra in the world. Do you think I was intimidated? Absolutely. Now, one of the things you love about Bernstein is that he would see every single person that wanted to see him after a concert. If that line were 100 long, he'd meet every single person. Now, the upside of that is you love a guy who's going to meet everybody. The downside is you got the donor dinner. And Bernstein would say, well, I might be there in an hour, it might be 2 hours. You just had to have that understanding. So at the end of the second concert, I needed to see him because I needed to invite him to come the following year with the Vienna Philharmonic. Many cities were bidding on it. I got down on my knee because I'm a tall guy, he's short, he had a cigarette in one hand, scotch in the other, and I'm looking him at the eye, and I say, we want to have you back next year. And this is what he said, his exact words. I love this town. I love the people of this town. I love this hall. We'll be back. And he did. The following year, he came back to one of our most historic concerts ever. Bernstein and the Vienna Philharmonic came in 1988. Now, many cities bid on it. Only 4 got it. New York, Washington, Toronto, and? You got to say it louder. Are you not proud? Chicago didn't get it. LA, forget it. Miami? No way. They chose Ann Arbor. Now, why was this significant? You know, 41 companies for the first time bought 900 tickets at $125 a piece. So what did that represent for us? Oh, and 25 families hosted another 900, paying $125 a piece. Come in your black tie, drive your car to somebody's home, have a nice dinner. The bus came with your number, you know, bus number 4 dropped you off in your tux and so on. You hopped on that bus coming back, had little cordials and dessert back home. And we sold 550 tickets to students for $10. Everything else was going for $125. More on that later. And then the new president, Jim Dudestat, becomes president on October 1st. I say to Jim, you can host any donor you want to in your home. He said, let Ann and me think about that. The next day he came back with this idea. You know, we like your idea, Ken, but what if there were 30 students? as our guests. Students that are studying composition and conducting and piano, like Bernstein was doing. Now, do you like a president that puts that kind of priority? I've got some photos here in a minute. And then Ann Arbor Pioneer High School, they wanted to go to Vienna the next year. So we put an ad in the book, Vienna sends its best to Ann Arbor. Ann Arbor sends its best to Vienna. Help the kids raise some money as a result of that. So here were students. Now, how do you get students? How do you get Bernstein to say yes to going to the president's home? You have 550 students with nothing to do as they're lined up 14 hours in advance. So you give them a clipboard at each end of the line. And the little clipboard said, send a message to Lenny. 100 of these kids wrote a message to Leonard Bernstein. Dear Lenny, my mom and dad fell in love listening to West Side Story, and I'm the product. If I'm not in this line, my ass is grass. Eddie, class of 91, okay? Hey, Mr. Bernstein, you've written concertos for everybody else. How about me? You know, George, sax major, you know, 100 of these, and we sent them with photos. And I had a cover note that said, Mr. Bernstein, these photos of these students, 14 hours in advance, spending the night, and these messages represent the next generation of your fans. Hey, by any chance, can you come to the president's house after the gig? 2 days later, he wrote back, absolutely, I'll be there. Well, look what he did. He came in that cape, and then he held court with these kids from midnight to 1:30. And at 1:30, I said, well, the president's fading in the corner. I think it's time we go. And he said, I don't think so. And he went to the piano and began playing tunes from West Side Story and Candide. Then at 1:40, he gathered all the kids around and said, Ken, where's that place you said we could go after this? The Full Moon on Main Street. Remember it, 1988? He took the kids down there and held court till 4:30 in the morning. Those kids will never forget it. Now, what's the significance of that event? Launched our corporate sponsorship program. It led to the Met Orchestra doing their debut performance of their inaugural tour here. They'd never been out of the pit for 107 years, and we presented them here. Deepened our relationship with the Bernstein family. It's his centenary next year. Do you think it's nice to have a relationship with them during that time? And enhanced our reputation on the international scene. Then another significant event was celebrating one of the three greatest artists of the 20th century, along with Picasso and Stravinsky. And Martha Graham, we celebrated her centenary here. But it also meant we celebrated her greatest ballet, which is called Appalachian Spring, music by Aaron Copland. She choreographed. 50 years to the day, we did the commemorative performance here. And the wonderful thing about it, a month before, they invited Peter Sparling of our dance faculty to reprise the role that he did when he was a professional with a company. Fantastic when you get that kind of local engagement. And so we partnered with 14 local, we learned how to do a residency that engaged the community and the university. And the significance, we became a significant dance presenter from that point on. And this helped create our education and community engagement program, which has been really important. But it set the tone for UMS collaborations going forward, and I'll have a word to say about that in a second. It also led to significant funding from major foundations. The last May Festival occurred in 1995. We've been losing $100,000 a year on the average since the May Festival no longer had the Philadelphia Orchestra. And of course, people were voting with their feet in early May. But what was the main reason? Commencement was occurring before the May Festival. So we had a little group, have a little SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And they indicated, boy, we'd love to have these special things that we love. Have a dinner, have a star, be able to make a little bit of money. But I said, the downside is you've got orchestras coming, and we're investing hundreds of thousands of dollars having those orchestras come to Ann Arbor when no students are around to benefit from it. Does that make sense? No, it didn't. When you make that kind of investment, you want the students to benefit from it. And so this came to an end in 1995, and then we started a different program called the Forward Honors Program, raising money. We went from a $100,000 loss a year to a $150,000 gain. That was a $250,000 difference. So this seemed to make some sense, and Van Cliburn was our first honoree. There's a funny story about that. I'll save it for questions if we got time. Okay, so who are these artists that we've featured and honored? Yo-Yo Ma, Renee Fleming, Wynton Marsalis, Joshua Bell, and here's a list of the others. Among the others, so over those 20 years, we honored a bunch of wonderful, wonderful artists, all of whom, you had this 4,700 seat hall, okay? How do you get people back in the house after the war? Because, you know, we need to build things up. So, Charlie Sink says the way we do this is get the most famous singer in the world to come to Ann Arbor. So he gets in touch with the manager in New York and says, I'd like to come to speak with Mr. Caruso about coming to Ann Arbor. And Caruso says, his manager said, where the hell is that? And the other thing you need to know, Mr. What's your name? Sink? You can't afford him. So Charlie went to New York to make sure that that's exactly what the situation was. He won't come to Ann Arbor and you can't afford him. So Charlie said, well, how much is the fee? $13,850. Charlie didn't blink an eye, but that was kind of like the budget for the whole year for UMS. He came back and gathered the board of the Musical Society and said, how do we do this? So what's the objective? Get people back in their seats. But everybody wanted to hear the greatest singer in the world in Ann Arbor at this new auditorium. So the board of the Musical Society came up with this scheme. You want to hear Caruso? Then you buy your season tickets for the 1919, 1920, and 1921 seasons in advance. Then you are eligible to buy a $15 ticket to hear Caruso. And that's how they did it. And so what happened? People came back in the seats, they packed the house again, and they were off and running. But that is the imagination of those guys that preceded me. You know, this is the guy that brought the Philadelphia Orchestra. Then Gail Rector, my predecessor, he had the Fairlane Festival and started a whole other group of things. I've been very lucky to be a part of that tradition. And Matthew, who's 47, coming from New York, he's already bought a place out on Dale View. He takes over, I think, the day after I'm out of there on the 6:30, 17. Thank you all very much. And Dale, thank you for inviting me, and Alan, thank you.